They were the masters of 3,000 worlds, the Galactic Council, rulers of the known galaxy for 3 millennia. They found a new species on the outer rim. Primitive, defiant. They called them humans. When the humans refused to bow, the Council passed its judgment: complete elimination. They dispatched a fleet of 1,000 advanced warships to carry out the sentence. They expected a quick, clean extermination. A minor footnote in their long, glorious history. But what happens when the primitives you've sentenced to death refuse to die? What happens when you declare war on the fiercest species alive? Before we initiate the battle logs, be sure to subscribe to this channel and authorize the transmission. The coming storm will be one for the history books. Alright, let's access the Council archives. File 9, Delta. The war begins now. The crystal towers of Sthara stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, 12 alien species sat around a table made from a single piece of star diamond. This was the Galactic Council. Honored members, began Ambassador Vlar of the Cthori, his blue, scaled skin catching the light. We have a problem. A new species has appeared in Sector 7741. They call themselves humans. A low rumble came from the Gronak representative, a creature of rock and metal. Another primitive species? Why do we waste time on such matters? Vlar's eyes flashed. Because these humans are different. They do not bow. They do not ask permission. They simply take. He activated a holographic display. Images of human ships and colonies appeared. The ships looked crude, made of metal and ceramic. Their weapons were simple projectiles and primitive fusion bombs. 3 months ago, our scouts found them on a small blue world, Vlar continued. They had just discovered faster-than-light travel. By council law, all new species must submit to our authority before expanding. The humans did not. The display showed human colonies spreading across multiple star systems. On worlds the council had marked as restricted. Did you send the standard demands? Asked the Mirathani representative, an aquatic being in a water-filled helm. Of course, Vlar replied. We sent 3 diplomatic vessels. Submit. Abandon your illegal colonies. Prepare for integration. And their response? High Counselor Tijzara, the ancient and powerful leader of the Cthori, leaned forward. Vlar's scales darkened with embarrassment. They destroyed our ships. The chamber erupted. The crystalline shardai chimed like broken bells. The energy beings called the Fluxari crackled with electricity. Impossible, declared General Crox of the Warrior Brutali. No primitive species has ever attacked council vessels and survived. The humans did not just attack, Vlar said quietly. They studied our ships. They waited. Then they launched coordinated strikes using weapons we did not expect. They fought like animals. No honor. They simply wanted to win. High Counselor Tijzara stood, her presence filling the room like a cold wind. How many ships did we lose? All 3. Vlar's voice was barely a whisper. 237 council citizens dead. The chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of council rule, no primitive species had ever inflicted such a blow. What are their military capabilities? Asked Admiral Zran of the council fleet. Approximately 2,000 ships scattered across 12 systems, Vlar reported. Most are civilian. Only about 300 are true warships. General Crox laughed. 300 ships against our entire fleet? This will be over in days. Their technology is primitive, Vlar agreed. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. They still use metal hulls. High Counselor Tijzara raised her primary arm. I call for a vote. All in favor of declaring the human species a threat to galactic peace and ordering their complete elimination. One by one, the representatives cast their vote. The motion passed. Only the ethereal ones, beings of pure thought, abstained. The decision is made, Tijzara declared. Admiral Zran, you will take the 47th Fleet to human space. Destroy their colonies. Destroy their ships. Leave no trace. Make them an example. How long should this operation take? Zran asked. 2 months at most, the High Counselor said dismissively. Probably less. As Admiral Zran walked toward his transport, he felt a strange unease. Primitive species were supposed to be terrified. They were supposed to surrender. The humans had done neither. They had fought, and they had won. He shook his head, dismissing the doubt. They had surprised a small diplomatic mission. They would not surprise a full military fleet. In 2 months, this stubborn species would be nothing but dust. The council had spoken. Admiral Zaphran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. The massive ship stretched for 3 kilometers, its crystal hull gleaming with embedded energy shields that could stop a supernova. Around it, 999 other ships of the 47th Fleet moved through space like a school of deadly fish. "We are approaching the outer edge of human space," the navigation officer reported. "First target is the Kepler system. Kepler, 3 human colonies and a major mining operation. The perfect place to demonstrate the Council's power." "Communications," Zaphran ordered. "Open a channel to the human settlements." The main screen flickered, showing a middle-aged human male in a simple uniform. Behind him, Zaphran could see a command center filled with primitive screens and blinking lights. "This is Admiral Zaphran of the Galactic Council 47th Fleet," he announced. "By order of the High Council, you are commanded to surrender immediately." The human on the screen looked tired, but not afraid. "This is Commander Jackson of Kepler Station. Admiral, I'm going to give you one chance to turn around and leave our space." Several of Zaphran's bridge officers made sounds of disbelief. A primitive was threatening a council admiral. "Commander Jackson," Zaphran said, amused, "you are facing 1,000 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Commander Jackson smiled grimly. "Admiral, you made one big mistake coming here." "And what mistake is that? You think this is going to be easy?" The communication ended. Zaphran stared at the blank screen, then turned to his weapons officer. "Target their orbital stations. Fire at will." A beam of pure energy lanced out from the Eternal Glory, vaporizing a human mining platform in a flash of light. Within minutes, 2 of the 3 orbital platforms were expanding clouds of debris. "Human response?" Zaphran asked. "Minimal," the sensor officer replied. "They are launching small craft. Approximately 60 vessels approaching. No energy shields detected. 60 ships against 1,000. Incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid." The first wave of human ships entered weapons range. The Council vessels opened fire with precise, calculated shots. And that was when everything went wrong. Instead of dodging, the human ships accelerated directly toward the Council fleet. Their primitive engines screamed, pushing past all safety limits, racing straight into the energy barrage. "Sir," the tactical officer said, confused. "The humans are not trying to avoid our weapons." Zaphran watched in growing alarm as human ships took hit after hit, but kept coming, their metal hulls glowing red-hot. "They are on collision courses with our ships," the navigation officer announced. "Impossible. No species is that insane." But the humans were. The first human vessel, a small cargo ship converted to carry weapons, slammed directly into the Council destroyer Sharp Wind. Both ships vanished in a massive explosion. "Report," Zaphran shouted over the alarms. The human ship, it detonated its fusion reactor at the moment of impact, the tactical officer said in disbelief. "The Sharp Wind is completely destroyed." More human ships followed the same suicidal pattern, ignoring the plasma fire, racing to their deaths to take an enemy vessel with them. "Full defensive fire," Zaphran ordered. "Stop them before they reach our ships." But the human ships were small and fast, and their pilots seemed to have no fear of death. A human destroyer, its hull melting, crashed into the cruiser Majestic Dawn. The explosion created a brief new sun in the Kepler system. "Sir, we are losing ships faster than we can count," the tactical officer reported. "The humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered." Zaphran stared at the battle display in horror. In 30 minutes of combat, the Council had lost 12 major vessels. The humans had lost 40. But they seemed willing to trade their lives without hesitation. "New contacts," the sensor officer announced. More human ships approaching from the inner system. Another wave was racing toward them. Civilian cargo haulers. Mining ships. All of them hastily fitted with weapons and explosives. "They are turning their entire civilization into a weapon," the tactical officer whispered. A massive, slow mining barge rammed directly through the Council formation. As Council ships fired on it, the barge's crew activated explosive charges throughout the vessel. The explosion destroyed 3 Council ships and damaged 5 others. Zaphran felt something he had never experienced in battle. Fear. "How many ships have we lost fleet-wide?" he asked quietly. 47 destroyed, sir. 23 heavily damaged. In less than 2 hours, the Council had lost more ships than in the previous century. As the surviving human ships withdrew, Zaphiran stared at the tactical reports. The humans had lost 63 ships. By any normal measure, the Council had won. But it felt like a catastrophic defeat. Communications, he said finally. Send a message to Council High Command. Request additional fleets. Additional fleets, sir? The officer asked in surprise. Zaphiran looked out at the stars where human ships had died, taking Council vessels with them. Our intelligence was wrong. Send the message. We are going to need more ships. In a lab aboard Luna Station, Dr. Anya Sharma stared at the Kthori prisoner floating in a containment unit. His name was Velkoth. He had told them everything he knew about Council military doctrine, not to help humanity, but because he could not comprehend why they would not surrender. Your species is doomed, Velkoth said through the translator. The Council has ruled for 3,000 years. Maybe that's your problem, Anya replied, looking up from her notes. I do not understand. You've never faced real resistance before, she explained. You've never had to adapt to a determined enemy. She gestured to the data screens. Your ships are magnificent. Your weapons are powerful. But you have no experience with desperate enemies who refuse to quit. 3 levels below, Captain Marcus Kane stood in the war room. Holographic displays showed red markers for systems under attack, blue markers for human fleets. There was a lot more red than blue. Status report, Kane said. Commander Lisa Petrova, his intelligence chief, stepped forward. The Council has deployed 3 additional fleets. We've evacuated 17 colonies. Casualties are heavy. We've lost 60% of our original fleet. But we've taken down over 200 Council ships in return. The room was silent. The math was simple. Humanity would run out of ships long before the Council did. Then we change how we fight, Kane said. He brought up footage from Kepler. The ramming tactics. Effective, but unsustainable. The Council expects us to fight like they do, Kane continued. Big fleets meeting in open space. Formal battles. That's how they've always fought. What are you suggesting, sir? Asked Admiral Chinlin. Kane smiled grimly. We make them play by our rules. He brought up a new projection. Guerrilla warfare. Hit-and-run attacks. Sabotage. Psychological operations. Their ships are too advanced for ambush tactics, Petrova pointed out. Then we don't use conventional tactics, Kane replied. Dr. Sharma's research shows their species are dependent on routine and predictability. They follow the same routes. They use the same formations. So we disrupt their routines, Admiral Chinlin said, a spark of understanding in her voice. Exactly, Kane confirmed. We attack their supply lines. We hit their logistics bases. We make them afraid to follow their normal procedures. The plan that emerged was unlike anything in human military history. Small, independent groups of ships would strike when and where the Council least expected. Civilian vessels would be converted into weapons platforms, their innocent appearance hiding missile batteries. And every human ship would carry a nuclear charge powerful enough to take down a Council vessel. Dr. Sharma's voice echoed through the station's communication system, broadcast to every human in space. Citizens of Earth and the colonies. The Galactic Council has declared war on our species. They believe we are primitive. They believe we are weak. But they have never faced anything like us. They have never encountered a species forged in the crucible of planetary warfare. They have never fought enemies who turn every ship into a weapon, every factory into an armory, every citizen into a soldier. On Europa, mining teams began converting their drilling equipment into ship killers. On Mars, children volunteered for military service. On Earth, every corporation retooled their production lines to build instruments of war. The Council thinks this war will last 2 months, Dr. Sharma's voice continued. They think we will break. In her lab, she looked directly at the Kthori prisoner. They don't understand that humans don't break. We bend. We adapt. We learn. And when someone tries to destroy us, we become something they never expected. What do you become? Velkoth asked quietly. Anya smiled. There was no warmth in it. We become their worst nightmare. 3 months later, the gas giant Proxima. 600 Council ships hung in perfect formation. They were hunting human raiders. What they didn't know was that the human fleet, commanded by Admiral Chinlin, was already there. hidden in the planet's radiation shadow. They were no longer sleek warships. They were improvised weapons. Cargo haulers with missile pods. Mining ships with nuclear rams. Passenger liners converted into carriers. Signal all ships. Admiral Chen Lin ordered quietly. Execute broken mirror. The first wave emerged from the planet's shadow. 50 small craft, painted to match the background radiation. The Council sensors detected them, but by the time they were identified as hostile, they were already inside the defensive perimeter. 50 ships, sir, reported the sensor operator to Admiral Zaphiran, who had grown thin and nervous over months of fighting an enemy he couldn't predict. Destroy them, Zaphiran ordered. As the Council ships turned their massive weapons, the second wave attacked. From the opposite side of the formation, 200 more human ships, emerging from the shadow of Proxima's largest moon. And as the Council fleet tried to respond to attacks from two directions, the third phase began. The first wave of 50 fighters accelerated to impossible speeds. Their crews had removed all safety systems and set their reactors to overload. They weren't firing weapons. They were ramming the Council ships. They're using their fighters as missiles, Zaphiran shouted in disbelief. The Council formation, designed to repel external attacks, began to collapse from within. Ships collided as they tried to avoid the human suicide craft. Explosions chain-reacted through their ranks. That was when Admiral Chen Lin played her final card. All ships, execute Thunder Run. From every direction, the rest of the human fleet appeared. 300 ships. They were heavily armored rams. Their fusion drives pushed beyond all limits. Their only purpose, to break through the lines and reach the command vessels. The Eternal Glory found itself surrounded by burning Council ships. Admiral Zaphiran watched in horror as his perfectly ordered battle line disintegrated into chaos. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple vessels. In less than an hour, the Council had lost half their fleet. But the victory at Proxima was only part of the story. On the industrial world of Kethvar, human operatives contacted the enslaved Vorak mining guilds. The offer was simple. Sabotage Council supply lines, and humanity will share captured technology with you. The Vorak response came in the form of explosions that destroyed 3 major weapons factories. Across the galaxy, the Council's subject species began to rise up. High Counselor Zara received the reports in her crystal tower on Thara. She felt something she had never experienced in her 2,000 years of life. Fear. How many member species have withdrawn from the Alliance? She asked her aide. 7 confirmed, High Counselor. And the humans, our intelligence suggests they have somehow increased their ship production, despite their losses. How is this possible? She whispered. They are one primitive species. Our xenobiologists believe they thrive on conflict, the aide replied. Each defeat teaches them. Each loss makes them more determined. What do our analysts recommend? Complete extermination, High Counselor. No prisoners. No negotiations. Destroy every human world, every ship, every trace. She made the decision. Authorize the use of planet-killing weapons. If we cannot rule them, we will ensure no one else can learn from their example. The order was intercepted by human intelligence. It was broadcast to every human settlement. The Council had made its final mistake. By threatening complete extermination, they had united every human behind a single goal. The total defeat of the Galactic Council. 3 years after the war began, High Counselor Tazara stood in the ruins of her crystal tower, watching the sky above Thara burn. The final battle was unfolding in orbit. The remaining 200 Council ships fought desperately against a force that defied all logic. The human fleet was no longer just human. Alongside their improvised warships flew vessels from dozens of newly freed species. The aquatic Mirathani, the crystalline Shardai, species the Council had conquered centuries ago now fought under human command. The orbital defenses are destroyed, High Counselor, her aide reported. Our remaining ships are surrounded. Admiral Zaphiran's flagship was boarded 20 minutes ago. Zara closed her ancient eyes. The war was over. What do they want? She asked. Complete surrender. Dissolution of the Council. Establishment of what they call a Galactic Federation, where all species have equal representation. Aboard the human flagship, Terra's Vengeance, Admiral Chen Lin watched the final Council fortress surrender. Victory. but the cost had been enormous. For billion human lives. Most of their colonies were radioactive graves. But they had survived. They had won. Dr. Anya Sharma, now humanity's chief diplomat, materialized on the bridge. Admiral, the council leadership has agreed to unconditional surrender. The terms were harsh, but fair. Dissolution of the council's government. All member species granted independence, war reparations, and the establishment of the Federation as a democratic alliance. What about the council species themselves? Admiral Chen Lin asked. They'll be offered membership in the Federation. Like everyone else, Dr. Sharma replied. Equal representation. No special privileges. But no persecution either. It was a remarkably generous offer. But humanity had learned something. Turning enemies into allies was more valuable than simply destroying them. On the surface of Sthara, Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez led her squad of Marines through the crystalline corridors of the Council's main government building. They found a dozen Council officials huddled in a conference room. Defeated. Afraid. You are under protective custody, Rodriguez announced through her translator. Please remain calm. An elderly Kthori female with silver scales looked up. Why? She asked simply. Why do you not simply kill us? We tried to exterminate your species. Rodriguez considered the question. It was one many humans had been asking. The council had shown no mercy. Why should they? Because, Rodriguez said finally, we're not you. The simple answer carried the weight of everything humans had learned. That becoming like your enemy was just another form of defeat. 6 months later, the first session of the Galactic Federation convened. Representatives from over 300 species gathered. Dr. Sharma stood at the central podium, the Federation's first Secretary General. 3 years ago, she began, the Galactic Council declared war on humanity because we refused to submit. They believed that might made right. She looked around the chamber, at species who had been enslaved and oppressed for centuries. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we establish a new principle, that all sentient beings have the right to determine their own destiny. The response was overwhelming. The most remarkable moment came when the Kthori delegate, the former High Counselor Tajura herself, rose to speak. I have lived for over 2,000 years, she said quietly. I have seen the conquest of 1,000 worlds. But I have never seen anything like what humanity has accomplished. You defeated us not just in battle, but in spirit. You showed us our way was wrong. And you offered us redemption, instead of revenge. The former ruler of the galaxy bowed deeply to the human representative. The Kthori request permission to join this federation as equal members. We wish to learn what it means to cooperate instead of dominate. The Council had declared war on humans and sparked their own extinction. But from that extinction had risen something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. Diversity rather than dominance. Hope rather than fear.